So what we just talked in groups about some things that make presentations maybe awful and make presentations maybe awesome. So I'm going to call on people probably that I haven't taught to ask you what your group thought. So in the back, Macarena, what, without naming names, what is an example of a presentation you've seen that was good and why?
Well, we discussed that people knew what they were talking about, so you could tell it was very well prepared. They made eye contact with the public. They were easy to follow, easy to understand, even though we didn't know much about the topic. We could follow the presentation. The visuals were very good PowerPoint with not many words on it, and they emphasized the important stuff that they really wanted us to get.
All good points, thank you. Tyler Helton, in your group, what was, without naming names, a presentation you've seen that was not the greatest and why?
One I was thinking of that wasn't the greatest is sort of a too, I'm going to call it data heavy, if I can use that term, that didn't really apply, it didn't show the real application of why I want to know this information. It was just sort of the raw information, cause and effect without context.
So data heavy without context. Chandler, what's a good talk that you've seen and what made it good?
We just said that pretty much the people know their stuff. They don't stumble on anything just because they're so well prepared.
Well prepared. Judy, what have you seen that's bad?
We said that was bad if they just sit there and read from the slide. That shows that they're not really aware of what they're talking about, that they have to be reminded about their subject. And then also, if they don't make eye contact or engage with the audience, people want you to engage and ask questions and talk with people in the audience, but a lot of people don't do that.
So eye contact and knowing what they're talking about. Caitlin, what was good or bad? Something that maybe nobody else has said yet.
One thing that I thought was good about presentation I saw was that the topic was personal to them. They have their personal interest involved in it. So obviously they're going to be more passionate about it than something that they just hear a lot about that. So
Yeah.
that was good.
Passionate personal connection to the topic. That was so good, and you all have said a lot of the things that I'm going to say are good and bad. And this that I'm talking about, it relates to your seminar presentation, but also any other presentation that you're going to do anywhere, with a few very specific seminar-related things at the end. So I'm going to talk about 5 areas that make a presentation good, several of which you've already talked about. The person should be prepared. You should know what you're talking about. This one you didn't mention, but it's important. Who are you talking to? And have you designed that talk specifically for them, for your audience? No one notices this in the talk, but a lot of times when the person seems prepared, it's because they have done a lot of planning and they made a good outline. So that's a key. The 4th is actually making good slides. You've probably heard some people do good talks without slides. I think that's difficult. It's possible, but I'm going to talk about how you make good slides. And then a little bit at the end about delivery. Chris Slaughter did such a good job talking about delivery last semester that I'm not going to spend too much time there. So number 1, you need to spend the time to make a good presentation. For seminar, this is incredibly important. It takes a lot of time to do the following. You need to understand your topic before you prepare the talk. And you would think that, well, yeah. well, yeah. But sometimes that doesn't happen. So you need time to learn about the topic, and hopefully you know generally what you're going to talk about before you start making the slides. That's the ideal way.
Can I say something here?
Yes, please.
A lot of times you don't realize what you don't know until you're starting to prepare your talk. There are things that come up. That means you've got to start early. Not just early, but early, so that you will have time to fill in those holes. That's the number one mistake that people make in their preparation of a seminar talk, is they wait too late. Oh, I've got time, I've got lots of time. No, you do not have lots of time. Okay.
Yes, it's all true. So you need time to research it, you need time to plan your presentation before you make the presentation. This is my big thing, like, you need to plan what you're gonna say and what you need to say and the order of it before you ever start to actually build or make slides. Ideally, you will have an outline before you ever make slides. And I think sometimes you can tell when people start making slides just because they feel like it. And then you need time to practice. So when you are in your seminar semester, your advisor will set your practice schedule, and most of us want you to practice twice with us, once with the speaking center, and we make backwards deadlines from your date. So, like Daniel, when's your first practice?
Like end of February,
End of February. When's your talk?
March 18th.
March 18th. So we kind of force you a little bit to have time to practice, but just be aware you need to spend time to make your presentation. And that also goes for class presentations that aren't seminar. Number two, this is a picture of a group of people who have all gone on to do different things now. This was Dr. Fitzinakis, which some of you may not have met, and this was students that were working in her lab at the time. So this is a pretty diverse group of people in their background. One of them was a work study who was actually an English major. Two of them were neuroscience majors. Some of them were biology majors. One of them might have been a chemistry major. One of them, coincidentally, did the presentation, never turned in a paper, never graduated from King because they didn't turn in a seminar paper. So don't let that happen to you. Some of the instructors remember that fiasco. But this is a decent representation of the kind of people that will be listening to your seminar. So professors, students that haven't had as many classes, students that are different majors from you, students that have had a lot of classes the same as you. So when you're going to present in seminar, who should you make the talk for, do you think?
People who,
Probably the beginning of your audience, the main,
The what of your audience?
the main of your audience.
The bulk of the audience? That's one approach. What were you going to say?
I would say just people that don't really know a lot, like haven't taken your specific classes, like kind of do it for them so they understand it.
Yeah. So you can go for the majority. And a lot of times when you go give a talk outside of here, I would go for the majority of people that know. For seminar, I actually prefer what Braden said, which is you should make it for the people that know the least. Is that kind of what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Here's why. We have diverse majors in here, and it's difficult for a physics major to listen to a biology talk, and it's difficult for a biology professor to listen to a physics talk. So in here, I would prefer for you all to make your talks accessible to students who are not your major. That's kind of what you want to go for. And if you make it accessible to them, everyone else will definitely understand it too. So think about, in any situation, who am I talking to? What do they already know? What do they know about this topic? So for physics students, what do you think the last physics class that most people in here had? General physics. For myself, it was general physics. Biology students, what do you think the last biology class was that a physics major would have had? High school.
High school biology.
High school, probably. So, please start kind of from there. And you've all felt this when you've heard talks that aren't your thing. oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. Like, I always feel like I need extra candy or something when I've got a physics talk coming up, because I know I need to pay totally good attention so that I can hang on. So please make your talk for the majors who aren't a major. Here's another one. Will people naturally care about this? You should not assume that everyone cares about your topic, and you should give them a reason to care about your topic. Yeah, give them a reason to care about your topic. Think about what would interest them about your topic and make a little connection there. And for seminar, this is important, because you know that the professors are going to ask you questions. What do you think they will ask you? That's too broad of a question for right now, but yeah, Michael.
Maybe higher level class, maybe higher level knowledge.
Higher level knowledge. We tend to, if we know that you've had Mammalian Phys ask you a question that relates to what we think you ought to know out of that class. This also relates to who you're picking as your advisor. So if you're doing a drug design study, and you've got alternative versions of compounds, even if you're a bio major, Dr. Picker could be your advisor, because he's the one that knows the most about conformations of compounds, structures, and so on. If your topic has to do with microbes, you'd be wise to ask me as your advisor. So it doesn't have to be your academic advisor. You ought to get as your advisor the person that you think would ask you the toughest questions about that topic, because we tend to do it in the practice and not in the real talk. Okay, so knowing who your audience is and knowing a decent amount about your topic, then you start planning. This is the thing I feel like students don't do enough of, is the planning. So when you start planning, the talk will have a beginning, middle, end. It ought to make sense as a kind of story. Think about what is the trajectory of topics before you start. Think about what do people need to know, basically, to understand what I am going to talk about. Like, Tyler, what's your topic?
My topic?
Yeah.
It's going to be on the structure of the ytterbium compound and how that structure changes under pressure.
The structure of a ytterbium compound. So, like, you might want to start with a periodic table and show, because that's down in the elements that biology doesn't look at. So you would want to start there. Shelby, what's your topic?
The effects of high cortisol levels and low cortisol levels in childhood development.
High cortisol and low cortisol effects on childhood development. What are you starting with in your intro?
What cortisol is.
What is cortisol? So you don't assume everyone knows what cortisol is, even though some of you really know what cortisol is. So what's important to understand what you're going to say later? What's the best order to do this in? You tend to see the same kind of order in seminar, like you have background, and then you have methods, and then you have data, and you explain the data, and you have conclusions. If you're doing a talk for a not seminar audience, feel free to think about what would be the best order to tell this story in. Like Noah is doing institute, what do you call that, student speaker this spring. He would not use that format for that talk. I would not think. Maybe you are, but you don't have to. So the format can change, the order can change based on what kind of talk you're giving. Whatever talk you're giving, think about what is going to be the hardest for people to understand. What's the tricky parts of this? And that's what you want to design around. So if you've had cell, I have forced you to do this. So you have practiced, like, how do I break down a really difficult data figure and explain it? But it's easier if you plan around what's the hard thing for the least informed person in my audience, and if you design for that, the rest will go well. So once you know what's hard to explain, then you can figure out how to explain it. And you'll see some examples of attempts at this in a few minutes. Okay, then you go and make the slides. So once you've got knowledge. You need knowledge about what you're going to talk about. You need to think about who you're telling it to. Then you do an outline, and then you make the slides. I do not, other instructors, let me see what you think about this, because we haven't talked about it recently. I do not like prezzies for seminar. So, a long time ago, 5 years ago, we said no prezzies in seminar, so we're still sticking with that just by looking around at people. If you do prezzies in another setting, that's okay. Seminar, they're a little bit unprofessional for what we're going for. Whatever format you're using, your slides need to be tools, not crutches. So your slides are a tool to help the audience. It should be to help the audience, not to have you like, your slides are tools, not crutches, you know, so that you're reading off of them. They're tools for the audience. Your slides should be for the audience. They should not be your notes, really. So if you're prepared and if you know your topic and you know what's coming on the slides, you don't need a lot of words on the slide. And I'm sure you've heard that before, your whole presenting life. Don't put so many words on a slide. And you won't need a lot of words if you're well prepared. It's a good rule to not go too long without having pictures in any talk you give. I know you've seen these. Slides of words, and you think, I could read that to myself. That's a slide of words. That's just not the best. So try to have at least a picture for every 2 slides as a general rule. And it's possible that you might need to make pictures. I'll come to that in a minute. The pictures are very important. Pictures are not an afterthought. Pictures are really helpful for your audience to grasp your topic. So when you identify what's hard to explain, then you will know what kind of pictures you need. So this next section is going to be focused on pictures. This is one of my favorite pictures to explain how a hormone that comes out of your liver raises blood pressure. And it's a hand-drawn animation that you can go and watch at this website. But this is an excellent picture, and it's explaining a lot of complicated stuff in a simplified way. That's the kind of picture that is very helpful for a seminar. So where do you find those? Google Images is so great. But please cite your source. So for a seminar, if you're using Google Image, you need to have the source cited, preferably on the same page. If you've had a class and you know that you saw a figure like that in the textbook, you can ask us and we'll get it for you. Those are extremely helpful because they're aimed at students your age to help you understand. So don't forget about textbook images. If you're great at drawing, you can draw them yourself. But you need to be good at drawing. Han had a former student, and in her PhD talk, her PhD defense, she did hand-drawn pictures that look great. And that can work if you're good at drawing. Or maybe you can hire your friend to draw it for you. You can make pictures within PowerPoint. How many of you how many of you feel like you know how to use PowerPoint pretty well? How'd you learn it? In high school?
My mom's teacher.
Your mom teaches you? Yeah. So you may have done this before, and if you've done it before, PowerPoint is fairly easy to make pictures in and animate them. I'm going to show an example of homemade PowerPoint pictures from Dr. Han Ong, who is great at making slides. Let's see, you remember? Dr. Ong, would you like to explain what class this is for and why you did
This is Principles of Biology, so it's baby bio.
So, core biology. Why did you do this for this topic?
Mostly because I couldn't find a figure that is simple enough without all the other clutter to just focus on what I really wanted to convey. So it came to a point that it triggered so much confusion that after 1 or 2 years, I decided I'm just going to sit down one evening and just make one my own so that it's a better tool for me to teach it to the students.
Yeah. So confusing topic, several years of frustration, could relate to that. So what he's done is he's making pictures in PowerPoint and it's boxes and letters and arrows, and it looks nice in the end, but not that complicated to build. So you've got your DNA strand with your bases, 5' to 3'. Wait a minute, I went the wrong way. Okay, and then there's an arrow to show that the new DNA has to be built in this direction. That pops up. And then I was trying to imagine how you do this for a class. Do you make them yell out the letter? T, A, C, G. So to show the semi-conservative replication, they're added one at a time. It's going 5' to 3' direction. Maybe that's easy to you, but it may not be for principles of biology. So a figure that solves a confusing problem and shows graphically homemade. And then it goes on and it has the other strand and so on. So if you need to make a picture, if your advisor suggests you to make a picture, you should consider that. My approach, I know how to do that, but I'm lazy. So I spend a lot more time looking in Google Image for a picture that will do what I want it to do. And if you've had microbiology with me, you've seen this picture, which does not come from a textbook, because I was trying to make nitrogen cycle matter to people. I'm like, why should you care about nitrogen cycle? And I call it the rabbit picture, because that's what everyone looks at. This is a homemade picture by someone else. I don't have it attributed. It's fairly simple. It's got arrows, words, and cartoony pictures, but it's showing how the major forms of nitrogen that matter to life get interconverted by different types of life forms. So I looked a while for this picture, and then now that I found it, I use it a lot, and if you're in micro, you'll see it again and have exam questions over it. So finding a good picture can save you a lot of time. This picture, I have seen, this picture is about a process called metagenomics, where you get some bacteria out of a place like the soil, and you're going to figure out what's there by sequencing their DNA instead of actually individually trying to grow them. And I have seen talks in here where people have lists of words that say how you do metagenomics, and I hate it. Because this shows you, get the DNA out of the soil, amplify it, sequence it, line it up, form genomes, and then compare what kind of species are in the soil. If you've got a big complicated method, please get a picture to show it. Don't just make words describing it, because people's eyes will glaze over. You need a picture. So look for pictures, cite your pictures, use pictures when you can instead of words.
Pictures take more time than words. Start early.
They do. They do. When you come in and practice your seminar and we see that you've got words, we know that you did it in the last 12 hours. We don't. And we like sigh inside for all the work that we have to do together. Okay, so you find a picture. Yes, I got a picture of that thing. Can you tell what this is? It's an astronaut. It's an astronaut, and it is a picture, and it is cited, but it's really hard to tell. Like over there, can you tell that it's an astronaut?
I thought it was a couple of hockey players.
Hockey players? Well, what would fix this? By the way, this is bad resolution, high magnification. Oh, that's better. Well, now it's obviously tiny and weird looking. So when you find a picture, the heartbreaking thing is, oh, I love that picture, but it's so grainy. It's so grainy. Keep looking. Get it big enough, get it clear enough. Some of you sometimes will need someone to adjust the lights. So if you've got a dark background picture and it's a fluorescent microscope, you'll need someone to adjust the lights. Sometimes that happens. So don't just find a picture, find a good high-res picture if you can. What about this picture? It's great, right?
I need an aspirin tablet.
This has a lot of problems. So say that I wanted a picture that has to do with how amino acids can be used for fuel feeding into the Krebs cycle. This technically shows that. So here we got some amino acids, and they can be fed into the Krebs cycle by conversion to acetyl-CoA, and then this technically shows that, but that's way too much, and it's also just visually eye-crossing. Try to find a picture that's not too much info. Like that's why Dr. Hahn had to make all his own picture, because the others had too much info. Somebody have a comment? Yeah.
I can't figure out where it starts.
Where it starts, yeah. Can't figure out where it starts. Yeah, some of it is continuous loops. So just because the picture has what you want, you may need to still keep looking. What about videos? Once in a while, someone will say, can I use a video in seminar? Firstly, always ask your advisor if they think it would be okay. But generally, if the video is longer than a minute, it's not appropriate for your seminar talk. What other instructors, what do you do about videos for other classes? Do you have a rule?
I don't have any hard and fast rules, time-wise.
I feel like I have a percentage, but I haven't figured it out. Like a 6-minute talk, it better be less than 30 seconds.
If the video is supplemental to what you have just shown or what you just talked about, it's good. If the video is rehashing what you just talked about, but in a fancier way with better animation and stuff, that is really redundant, and that becomes a little bit distracting.
Somebody had a mouse video last semester that was very helpful of a mouse doing a test. And that was really useful. I think it might have been Madison Jones, but if the video is short and helpful, ask your advisor and see if it would be okay. Sometimes they're really good to use, but there's other times when, like, no, that is not appropriate for a seminar video at all. And if you're going to use a video in any talk, make sure you know what's the segment that you want, and that you get it loud enough set all that before your talk so that you don't have to fiddle with it during the presentation. Okay, here is one I would like to see more in seminar. Actually, I would like to see this less in seminar. So you've got a giant data table. I seem to have a lot of advisees that use giant data tables type of article. And say that I'm trying to get everyone to look at the children's suspension of Tylenol and be looking at this column right here. What are you all looking at? Wait. Wyatt, what are you looking at?
Everything else.
Everything else. So when I see something like this, I feel like I'm just looking all over the place. I'm trying to take in all of it. And you might be saying, look right here. But if I'm over there, I'm like, wait, what? So if you need a giant data table, here's some things that you can do to help this. You can crop it. You can crop the picture so that at least we're looking out on the end and we took away the unnecessary part here. That's an option. You can put some kind of highlight around where you want people to look. So this is a pop-up shape animation. That's helpful. Sometimes, if the chart is all white, you can do a shade-in box. That one doesn't look good with this because behind it there's color and they're adding together and make it a little bit fuzzy. But if you're using a giant chart, please do something to help the audience look at the part that is important. And that takes advanced planning as well.
And if you have a giant chart that doesn't blow up well, like this one is giant, but it blows up well, you can still read it from the back of the room. Make your own.
Yeah. If those are not going to work well, just make a new chart. which again takes time, but if you really need, if it's got 8 columns and you only need us to look at one, just make a new one. And again, you're not going to do that the night before, but sometimes that's what's needed. Okay, here's another one. What will people be able to see and not hurt their eyes? So here's 10 point, 16, 24, 32 in blue, 48, 54 in red. What's a good size? 24? So kind of this range, 24 to 32. What's the best color in this situation? I like white in this situation. I've had students before. Also, let me say, this is not, whatever I picked here, this is not professional enough for seminar. It looks like a film reel or something. Not very professional, but I've had students do amazing talks, and they've done it like with weird fonts, and I want to say, oh, you need to go back and change that, but I know that's a lot of work. So try to use fonts and colors that are easy on the eyes. And I've always been curious, like, if you're over here at a steep angle. Yeah, that doesn't really change anything. 24 to 48 is about where you want to stay. Okay, formatting and maybe animation. Oh yeah, I forgot I did that. Don't do that kind of thing in seminar. Like, really don't do that kind of thing. That's like so 80s by now. Don't do that. Don't make the thing zoom in. So don't use weird animations. It's unprofessional. You want to be easy to see, easy to read, help the reader, but don't distract them. Don't do that. Don't pick a background that looks cool because you think it will distract from your lack of info. Not for this kind of talk. Don't use cute fonts. I'm not saying you got to stick to Times New Roman, but don't use cute fonts. I forgot that I made you do this silly thing. If you use animation, make it effective and not distracting. So I like just the appear. It appeared all of a sudden, and there it went. Don't get cutesy with it. And then what I'm going to do next is I've got a slide. I want you to look at it and discuss what could be better about this slide. And both of these examples are actual slides that I taught with in my first year. Here we go. This is a textbook provided slide for instructors. If you have new instructors and they're doing this, it's because they're freaking out and they don't have time to fix it in the amount of time they have. What could be better about this?
A picture would help.
Yeah. A picture. Now when I teach about it, I've got separate slides for each of these things, and I'm talking about, here's some cyanobacteria, here's a timeline of the development of the earth, here's a graph of oxygen levels. This is just bad. But you know you've seen these kind of things in seminar where it's boom, 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 words and huge concepts all together with no pictures. It needs pictures badly. What else would help it?
Bullet points.
Yeah. Bullet points. All at once, that's too much info all at once. So popping up bullet points would help. What else would you hope that you would have seen before this slide?
Titles and stuff.
What'd you say?
Like a title of what we're talking about maybe?
Yeah, like where does this fit? If I'm going to use the word peroxidase here, I should mention what that is before. So that one, it's too wordy, needs pictures, too dense. Okay, here's a slightly more advanced one, and I'm just going to step through it. I actually used this during my job talk. he or king. Okay, so design-wise, what could be better about this? Yeah.
You could make the ones that are yellow on top of the leaves be a darker color.
Yeah. So yellow on green is not the best, color scheme there. What else would you fix about this? The order that they appear? Yeah, didn't they come up in a weird order? Like right first, not left? What else bugs you about it?
The leaves themselves are really bright.
Yeah, the contrast is messed up.
Well, they pictured it smaller and it's really bothering me.
Yeah, I know, me too. The boxes are not the same size. Boxes are not the same size. Yeah.
The information didn't come very easy because you have to do the horizontal and the vertical coordinates, right? So if it's this situation with that situation, that's the way it is. And so that's extra requirement of the audience to try to figure those things out. Probably the best way to do it, I would prepare 4 different columns of all those 4 different combinations and show all those 4 different combinations across so that you can compare all those situations. Because right now you're asking your audience to look, okay, if this one, if that one, so it's everywhere.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it didn't stop me from getting this job, but it's kind of cringy now, looking back at it. Oh yeah, it has a whole other piece. So most of this has been about slide design. I do want to say some things about delivery as well, and none of this is really different than what Chris said, but I do want to include a little bit. When you give your seminar presentation, we kind of expect that you wear clothes that you would wear maybe to a job interview or a graduate school interview, something professional looking. You want to be able to move around well. So if you're wearing heels, make sure that they're not so tall that you're going to trip, or that when you get over here next to the little incline that you fall over. For guys, especially, if you're wearing a colorful button-down shirt and it shows sweat, oh, I feel so bad when I see that. It's usually guys. I can remember individuals and like they seem cool on the outside, but oh my goodness, you just look at the sweat. So think about what you're going to wear and look good, and it will give you confidence. Don't read your slides, but don't read off the slides. Some people get around that by they have cards here, and the cards say every word that they're going to say during the talk. And I know you're nervous, but you want to get away from that. Because if you have to look down, you can't look out, and you want to be looking at the audience. It's good if you know what your bullet points are going to say. And, stay on track like I tend to not. Look at the audience. If you tend to talk super fast, you're going to need to find a way to slow down. Most of you don't talk too slow. You get nervous and talk too fast. And try to be louder than you think you should be. Try to be louder than you think you should be. Like, I kind of feel like I'm yelling, that this is working, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, be loud enough, be slow enough, and if you suffer from voice immodulation syndrome, this is an old SNL skit, if you tend to talk flat, work on that. I have that problem. I have to work hard to get energy in my voice and stop sometimes and walk and point sometimes, not lean on the podium. That's my thing that I do. So your advisor will tell you what you need to work on. A lot of times it's slow down. And try to make yourself excited. If you're not excited about what you're talking about, it's hard to get the audience excited. So we want you to pick topics that you care about. And if you have a personal connection to it, and you have a passion for it, that comes through. But if you're a low energy person, if you're a low key person, if you're an introvert, you need to like really amp yourself up so that you seem regular. When you get up here to give a talk, like you need to really amp yourself up. If you need candy, if you need caffeine, if you need to go do some jumping jacks, do it. Some of you don't have that problem, but some of you do have that problem. So get yourself psyched up so that you are excited and you can make everyone else excited to understand all the hard work that you have put in. I want to have also, I do have a slide that I added in, specifically seminar stuff that bugs us as instructors. I keep telling my students, remember, the others don't know all this that you know. So don't assume that everyone knows what cyclic AMP is, because they don't. Even if you just had it last week in class, well, other people don't know that. What's your element, Tyler? Ytterbium?
Yeah.
But even just, ytterbium is an element. Here it is on the periodic table. Remember who you're talking to. Make your talk for opposite majors from you, and if you can get them to understand it, that's what we're going through. My pet peeve is when you put up data and you rush through it because you're worried that you can't explain it. If you put up data and you go off of that slide in 10 seconds, you're going to go back to it in the questions. So get comfy, explain it to us. Do not rush through the data, because science talks are about the data. Also, at the end, when you put up the tiny 8-point font references and you're like, here's my references, and then you go to the question, are there any questions? We would like to see the references, big enough to read and kind of look through them as instructors. So don't rush that. Don't rush that either. When you put up data, remember that only you and the advisor have seen the data before today. Even instructors do not instantly grasp a graph when you put it up there. We're trying to look at it and figure it out too, so don't rush explaining it. So I'm going to give an example. If you put up a graph, you need to say what the axes are and the statistics and give context. So here is a graph. This happens to be a dose response curve. What do you need to know about this to understand what it's saying? A title. So if this was really seminar, I might put up here the title of what the graph shows, or I might say it with my mouth. Either way can be okay. What else do you need to know about this?
The term.
Yeah, like what is isoflurane? I hope I'm saying that right. I didn't talk about that. Make sure you're saying it right. Is that right?
I think so.
Okay. What does it mean for a fly to be anesthetized? You better practice saying anesthetized. That stuff I should have told you in the background, or the methods, right? So if I were going to explain this to you, I would say that this experiment is to see how much isoflurane does it take to anesthetize flies after they've been exposed to it for 75 seconds. I would need to tell you how they were exposed to it. I don't know. I don't know how they were exposed to it because I just grabbed this off of Google Image just as a random graph example. But I would need to say we're looking at a group of flies, and I would tell you how many number of flies they used, and it takes basically 2% isoflurane to anesthetize most of them, and when you get past that level, there's no point in giving them more. They're all anesthetized already. If your graph or data has statistical markings on it, you need to not ignore them. So if this is the standard deviation of the average of how many flies were anesthetized there, you need to say that. if there was an asterisk here with a p-value, you need to address it, because we'll come back and ask you to do it if you don't, so do it the first time. Do it the first time. I've stayed on this a long time, and this is kind of a simple graph, but do you feel bored with it yet? Don't answer. It might take that long for everyone to understand the graph, so slow down on the data. Slow down on the data. Okay, I want to also have time for the instructors, or maybe you, to say, like, what other things in seminar bug you, or would you like students to do?
I have a question for the class. How many papers should you have read, and therefore they should be on your reference list for a good seminar? Okay, Ashley said 20. That's a good amount.
Jacinda, how many did you read, do you think?
It was like 20.
Around 20?
Anybody remember Morgan Green's talk from last year?
Yes.
Okay. What struck you about Morgan's talk? Everything. So what struck me as an instructor, I could tell from his talk that he had probably read over 100 papers. Now, I'm not asking you to be Morgan Green, but we can tell how much reading you have done. If you have read your 2 papers and that is it, what is going to happen? Jacinda's shaking her head because it's going to be ugly, right? So, the best way to do what Dr. Pete said and to do what Dr. Laurent said, to be prepared to know your subject, read lots of papers. You can skim through some of them, and then you find the ones that are really relevant. The other thing that I tell my students that are doing this is the best way to learn a new topic, read papers, but start with a review paper that's related to your topic, published in the past 5 years, and go from there, because that's giving you a snapshot of where the field is, and it's a good way to find other more specific papers too. So read lots, please.
And if you pick a topic that you're interested in, it's not as hard to read lots, because you'll have some curiosity about it.
The other thing that is one of my pet peeves is when students pick 2 papers and there's no relationship between the 2 papers. You've got to pick 2 papers that tell a good story. Several years ago, we had a student give a talk about trout. And the title was something about Appalachian trout. Neither of the papers had anything to do with Appalachian trout. One was Colorado and one was Spain. And they weren't even the same species of trout. There was trout blood in the water by the time we were done with it. So please make your job and our job easier by picking 2 good related papers.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing talks that use these strategies. So we'll see you in 2 weeks here, or no, sorry, 2 weeks at Central Pres for case holdup.
We can show up, but we don't have to run for like to go to that one. We said they were offering transportation, but we can go to
Yeah, you can just show. I'm just gonna go to the 4:30 one because that's my birthday, so we're gonna go out that day. So we're going out.
Oh, sign in on the sign-in sheet if you didn't. It's over there.
Yeah.